So, welcome back, everyone. Happy New Year. As I mentioned, I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. For those of you who are just joining us for the first time, my name is Joanne Carr, and I'm the director of OASIS, which is the education department here at Omega Alpha. And as I go through tonight's presentation, please don't hesitate to write your questions out. I will stop at that time and do my best to answer those questions. You do not have to wait till the end. I will be sending a link to the recording of this presentation out to everybody tomorrow, along with a copy of the presentation, so you can use both as a future reference. So we're going to get the show on the road and talk about respiratory issues with horses. And before I get into the supplement portion, I always like to talk a little bit about the risk factors, what creates respiratory distress in horses, and not just jump into the supplements. I want to give you a general understanding, and there is a general awareness out there anyway. And I realize that everyone is at a different learning level. So I like to keep things pretty simple and straightforward. If you do need any more scientific support or research for the supplements or anything else that I talk about, please let me know and I'd be happy to send that information out to you. So there are different risk factors when we're looking at respiratory distress in horses. And ultimately, nobody wants to see their horse that's having difficulty breathing. Usually, equine respiratory diseases are environmentally based. The environment is a huge factor when we look at respiratory distress. It could be an allergy. We see that occurring more and more frequently now. We get a lot of questions about that. Through our toll-free number. These allergies could be to dust, mold, mites, anything in the air. And just as we are affected by what's going on all around us, pollen and things like that. Horses can also be subject to respiratory issues along those lines as well. Hay and straw are the most common sources of these particles when we're looking at mold, mites, and so forth. So the equine living environment is a huge factor, and managing that equine environment is very important to reduce risk or reduce the chances, or if a horse is experiencing a breathing difficulty, to look at that environment in which he or she is living. So when we look at, pollution is another one. When we look at the air quality, overcrowded paddocks, poor facility management, seasonal changes as we get into, well, when it's really cold, it poses a problem. And as it warms up and as we get into spring, we all know how that affects breathing. Looking at the age of the horse, the overall health of the horse, these are just some of the risk factors. Now, causes of respiratory diseases are broken down. I've broken them down into four categories for tonight's presentation. The first one being infectious, allergic, irritant, and then the last category is other. So let's take a look at the infectious category first. That could be respiratory issues caused by any infectious agent, I guess you could say. Viruses, we could be looking at influenza, rhinovirus, the herpes virus, and the different types associated with that. Bacterial infections, streptococcus, different types of streptococcus, different species involved. Mycoplasma, these are similar to bacteria, but they don't have a cell wall and are resistant to common antibiotics such as penicillin. And then protozoa, for example, paramecium, amoeba, single cell living microorganisms that are different to viruses, bacteria, and mycoplasma. So breaking that down into the infectious category, followed by the allergic category, which many people are finding occurs as we get into the spring when the temperatures tend to warm up. Even as the snow starts to melt, there's something called snow mold. I'm not sure if you've heard of that before, but it is actually a thing. As the snow melts, anything that's been trapped under the snow during the winter months is being exposed into the air for the horse to breathe, and that could potentially be a problem. Of course, that's anything that when we look at reactions to inhaled materials, that's going on all around the horse horse in the environment. Pollen, so grass, trees, shrubs, crops, mold, fungal spores, forage mites, all of these fall into the allergic category. Bacterial toxins, it tends to be environmental when we look at the allergic response. And then anything that irritates the throat or the respiratory system at all, it's considered anything that falls into this category is we would talk about anything inhaled that is going to irritate the horse, not necessarily create an allergic response, something that could potentially irritate the throat or anything along those lines, or irritate the system. Ammonia from bedding, that's produced by bacteria in the bedding from urea in urine. The ammonia would be considered a potential irritant. Dust, of course, if you are training lunging or training, synthetic surfaces, anything the horse is running on or training on, fine sand, soil, building or quarry dust. These are just some examples. And then cold air, similar to what we call ski asthma in people, that cold air is considered an irritant as well and could cause breathing distress. And then in the final category, before we actually get into the supplements, any anatomical dysfunction, any type of upper airway obstruction, anything that could be um, congenital with regards to the horse in question, lung bleeding during exercise, the exercise-induced pulmonary hemorrhage or EIPH, we call that, reactions to medications or treatments, pulmonary embolism or thrombosis. No, we normally, generally speaking, when we're looking at all these categories, the majority of people that call us that where their horse is dealing with breathing issues, the majority of them are either irritant related or an allergic reaction to something in the environment, something they're inhaling. So those are the major ones. We do sometimes have horses that are dealing with pulmonary hemorrhaging and things like that, but it tends to happen more with the equine athletes, of course. Thrombosis, we don't really get a lot of those types of questions. And then looking at facility management, and again, that's all about managing the equine environment and making sure the ventilation is good in the barn and things like that. The bedding is changed. It's not something that's ongoing that could create problems down the road. Diet and nutrition, of course, is huge. And ultimately, the diet and nutrition are of paramount importance because they lay the foundation of equine health to begin with. When we look at the quality of feed and hay, as well as the state of the water source, and then the age and the current health status, we would consider all of these under the other category. So again, looking at predominantly, we get a lot of questions about horses with allergies, heaves, and things like that. COPD is, there's different names associated with them. But as a horse owner, when you're looking to choose the appropriate supplement, and for those of you who have joined me earlier today, we've had two earlier presentations today. Some of this is going to be a bit of a repeat, so please hang in there and we will get to the supplements. But ultimately, for those of you who are new to the supplement line, or again, I always find revisiting these types of things always to be beneficial for the horse owner, because it can be very overwhelming when we're looking to choose a supplement and to choose the best and most efficacious supplement for the symptoms that the horse is displaying. So I talk about strategic or targeted supplementation, and at the very end we're going to look at situations in which we would recommend the different products. And I'm going to talk about them briefly now as well, but looking at how we can combine the products, how we can use them singularly. There's different ways of going about doing that. So you are giving your horse the most appropriate supplement for that particular health issue. So when we're looking at supplements in general, some of the things to look for, regardless if it's an omega alpha supplement or a Mad Barn supplement or whichever supplement you decide to choose, these are some of the things, the highlighted things that I like to talk about and things that I find are very important. Ensure that there's science to back up the ingredients from the perspective of efficacy, quality, safety. These are very important to us at Omega Alpha for a number of reasons, because one of our many mantras is to improve the quality of life for animals. And we have three product lines for those of you who are new. We have a supplement line for people, a supplement line for small animals, cats and dogs, and then we have our third line for horses. So ultimately, when you're purchasing a supplement, you want to make sure that the product's going to work. You're spending good money, and equine husbandry can be very expensive. And when we look at the safety measures, everything has been put into place because we manufacture all the products at Omega Alpha. And when you are a manufacturer, you have to make sure that you're following certain regulations based on Health Canada. And so we have to make sure that we are following these to a T. Otherwise, we would be shut down and there would be no more supplements for everybody and their pets or their horses. So that's very important that we follow these regulations. And we have a laboratory, we have a research assistant that works in a white lab coat, as you can imagine, and he does all the testing before, during, and after the products are sent out. And we have the technology to check the herbs, to basically, we have what we call a high performance liquid chromatography machine that basically authenticates the herb in question, because they don't come in a powdered form, they come in a whole form, and that's always a good thing to do. Our products, or when you're looking at products, I should say, ensure that they've been evaluated by veterinarians as well. That's something that we do, we feel is very important with our product line, well, both with the small animal and the equine lines. And also check, choose products where you know the company is above board and that everything is tested for heavy metals, contaminants, toxins. Because when you get ingredients from other countries, we have to ensure that, again, looking at microbes and certain parts per million of certain types of when we test things, certain testing methods, we look for parts per million. Whether it's an oil or whether it's an herb, we have everything set in place. And I'm very much looking forward to, once I get the video, which will be coming out this year, we have a lovely video giving you a tour of our laboratory and what's being used, how we check things. And I think that's going to be of paramount importance when so people have a general understanding of how everything is made. And make sure that there's ingredients that help control inflammation, because regardless of the health issue, whether it's respiratory, digestive related, joint related, there's always some level of inflammation involved. So you'll always find in our product lines anti-inflammatories, be it through a vitamin, a mineral, or an herbal. And always, we really pride ourselves on the fact that, not that just we're an herbal based company, and there's a lot of herbal-based companies out there, but we are unique because we use Chinese herbs with Western herbs. So that combination is very unique to us at Omega Alpha. And you'll find that the majority of products in the equine line are multi-ingredient formulas. And when you choose a multi-ingredient formula for respiratory support, that means that, let's say, for example, if one ingredient doesn't work as well for your horse, that there's going to be 4 or 5 or 6 or even more other ingredients in that same formula that could potentially help your horse breathe more effectively. So having said all that, we're going to move into the products now. And we're going to look at, I'm going to try to describe the best way I can the products. And again, we're going to look at different situational uses for these products. But generally speaking, when you look at the names of the products, they give you a general idea of what the product is going to do. So the equine lung flush is all about flushing the lungs, cleansing the lungs, so it is a gentle cleansing formula for the lungs. And based on the toxins in the environment now, I would highly recommend this for every horse owner, especially, we normally recommend the lung flush maybe every 6 months or so, but it can be we usually recommend it to be given for about 30 days. All of our flushes we normally recommend for 30 days, just to do a very a decent job on cleansing. So the product works because it helps to, the herbs in the formula enhance blood flow to the lungs. And whenever you increase blood flow to an organ, you're going to bring more oxygen and more nutrients to that organ. So that will help the lungs gently, and it is a gentle formula. So for anybody who has never given any type of a cleansing or flushing product to their horse before, please rest assured that these products are all very gentle. They're non-purging. You're not going to see these extreme side effects occurring. With lung flush, one of the nice side effects is that you might find your horse has more energy, because by enhancing blood flow to the lungs, you're going to be getting more, there's some more oxygen going to that particular, to the lungs. So then we've got a horse that has a little bit more pep in his or her step. But lung flush is strictly all about clearing toxins from the lungs, any toxins the horse has been breathing in for years, especially if we're looking at a senior horse. A senior horse has been around a lot longer than a younger foal or a much younger horse, and has been exposed to more toxins in the environment. The lung flush is really good for clearing the lungs, as I mentioned, clearing out trapped debris that have been kind of stuck in lung tissue or trapped there. This is where the blood flow, increased blood flow, will help clear those excess toxins and get them out of the system. So what you might find is the horse is also coughing a little bit more because it's an expectorant. The ingredients in this formula help to clear toxins through the expectoration properties. And so we would recommend this product, for example, for horses with allergies, low-grade heaves, horses that are in a stable environment and don't get out as much. They're stable for whatever the reason might be. They're not getting out as much. So if there's poor ventilation in that environment, or the bedding of, again, the higher levels of urea, that could potentially be a problem. So the lung flush can help to clear out some of the toxins that the horse is breathing in. So these are some of the situations, and we're going to look at ways that we can administer when we, again, with any liquid, we usually recommend using a syringe. And we get a lot of questions about syringing the products or top feeding or mixing them in with feed, mixing them in with grain and things like that. You can do any of those. You can use a syringe, you can top feed. We do find though that the products work. You'll notice results more quickly if you use a syringe, because the ingredients are getting directly into the bloodstream. And there's a bit more of a time lag when you top feed. Now, when you top feed, it doesn't mean the product's not going to work. It's just going to take a little bit longer to work. Any liquid that's administered with a syringe is going to work more quickly. And that's right across the board, regardless of which product you give. Now, with regards to herbs, there's a very large safety margin associated with herbal formulas. And so, if you give too much, the horse, of course, would be coughing more. You can always reduce the dose. You can start with a lower dose and work your way up. The dosing, and you might want to write this down because you're not going to find it in any of our literature. All of the dosing on the labels, on the bottles, all based on 1,200 pounds. So if you have a horse that weighs 1,800 pounds, you can give more. Or if you have a miniature horse, you can give a third or a quarter or a half, or based on the weight of that miniature horse. And even though there's always images of horses on the labels, we get product questions about, can goats use these products? Can we give them to donkeys? Questions like that. And the answer to that question would be yes. Again, it's all based on weight, although with Health Canada, we're not allowed to have on the label safe for goats and things like that. But we've been giving, these products are absolutely safe for respiratory distress in goats or with donkeys as well. So just so everybody's aware, looking at the mammal from a mammal perspective, these products are definitely safe for other species on the farm too. We do have different sizes of our products. So if when you try out the products, products, not everybody wants to purchase a gallon size. The liter size is quite often where people will start, but I would highly recommend giving this product for 30 days. And again, expectorant properties, so coughing, if the horse is coughing a lot, you can always reduce that dose. You can play around with that dose as needed. So that's the cleansing formula, the lung flush. And I'm going to put everything together at the end when we get to our last slide. I know many of you already know about the last slide in our strategy slide, but some of you are new tonight, so we will talk about that at the end. The airwaves is more of a bronchodilator. It still has some cleansing properties, though. It has some of the cleansing properties of the lung flush, but it also has the added benefit of being a bronchodilator. So it helps to open up the airways. So if you have a horse that has a mild case of heaves or mild allergies, or a little bit of wheezing, it's not too intense. Maybe labored breathing, not too intense. This is for milder cases of all of these. And the reason I'm mentioning milder cases is because we're going to be talking about another product that is similar to airwaves called Respirafree, where it's for more chronic, more difficult cases of allergies or heaves. So the airways, if your horse has a mild case of heaves, I would start with using airwaves. And can you use lung flush with airwaves? Yes, you can. Lung flush has stronger, when I'm talking about stronger, I guess you could say the lung flush is targeted more for cleansing. Airwaves more as a bronchodilator, a little bit of cleansing, but not to the extent of the lung flush. So this product can help clear mucus and improve breathing by clearing mucus, just like the lung flush will do. Anytime a horse coughs, it's going to cough up that mucus, and that mucus will contain toxins that are trapped in the lung tissue. So this is why it's important for horses to cough to get those toxins and that mucus out of their airways so they can breathe better. Now, with all herbs, regardless of what the herb is doing, herbs are high in antioxidants, and antioxidants help control inflammation. So, with all of these products, they all help control inflammation in the respiratory system, and that's very important because that's the first thing that we need to do is control inflammation. Because if we don't, ongoing inflammation can cause an obstruction in the airways, and that makes it even harder for horses to breathe. So we want to make sure those airways are open and we're not restricting them in any way. So you've got that covered with the anti-inflammatories and the herbs that have been chosen for the formula. So yes, for when we're looking for at a horse that you know, has, you know, low grade heaves or mild allergies, mild wheezing. It's not a chronic respiratory issue. And maybe it's the first time it's ever happened. I would suggest the airwaves. And, you can start with the lung flush, or you could give the lung flush with the airwaves. There's not a problem combining the two. We have to look at what the horse is in the environment the horse is living in, what the horse is running on, or maybe even training on, or for those who are dealing with equine athletes. We just have to look at dust. We have to look at what the horse is kicking up as he or she is running around, being lunged, or whatever the case might be. We've got different scenarios going on there. So airwaves it's suggested to administer airwaves with a syringe as well. And again, based on 1,200 pounds. Now, if your horse just has a dry, non-productive cough with really no other symptoms, I would suggest the Herbacough. As the name indicates, it's a very soothing remedy or soothing supplement for a dry, persistent cough. The cough could be due to an allergic reaction or an upper respiratory tract infection. It does have some bronchodilatory effects, but not to the extent that the airwaves or the Respirafree would. The herbs are very soothing. So you know how it goes. For anybody who's ever had a tickle in their throat or a chronic cough or something that's just not going away, or they've they just need, you just need to take something to soothe that dry cough or soothe your throat. That would be what the Herbikoff would be for the horse. So it's going to soothe the throat. It's going to control inflammation. It's just for any type of throat irritation. And we looked at the irritants earlier when we broke down the different categories for breathing. This would fall into the irritant category, the Herbikoff. So anything that irritates the throat, it's a natural cherry peppermint flavor. Now, when we talk about flavors and what's been added to the products, the products are naturally flavored. So, we do add it's a cherry peppermint flavor to the Herbikoff. And of course, you can smell that as you open up the container. But again, for any horse that is dealing with a metabolic issue, we get this question a lot too. Anything that has a flavor component added, not contraindicated for metabolic issues. So if you have a horse with, if we're dealing with an insulin resistant horse or a Cushing's horse, things like that, you don't have to worry about any of the formulas, be it whether it's Adrenafex or Herbikoff or any of our formulas being contraindicated for blood sugar related issues. And we do recommend the Herbikoff for allergies, colds, throat irritants. So the dry, non-productive cough, usually you're not seeing anything coming from the nose, things like that is not really something where we would recommend Herbikoff. We would recommend lung flush for a lot of mucus or things like that. The Herbikoff is more for the dry, non-productive cough or an irritant, something that's irritating the throat. So we look around to the environment to see, the living situation, the training situation, and things like that. So this is really soothing to the throat. And then lastly, our Respirafree. Respirafree, I saved it till the end because Respirafree is a combination of airwaves, equine lung flush, and Herbikoff all rolled into one. So it saves you a lot of money to purchase the Respirafree to get all of the wonderful ingredients. There's 15 different herbs in Respirafree, so that's a lot of herbs. And when we talk about a comprehensive approach or looking at multi-ingredient formulas, this is one of our most comprehensive formulas with regards to the number of ingredients in the equine supplement line. So there's 15 different herbs, and this is the most comprehensive respiratory formula we have for more chronic respiratory issues. So that where airwaves and Respirafree differ is that airwaves is more for milder cases. Maybe it's the first time it's ever happened with your horse or your horses. Respirafree is for that horse that just it's a chronic thing. It happens every year. And when we look at the environment, this is something that's constantly changing. The environment just seems to be getting worse and worse and worse. And again, we have a lot less control over the environment than we do with regards to feed or forage or medicine or supplements. Like the environment is something that is so difficult to control. And so we do the best that we can with the use of the supplements and barn management, appropriate barn management for ventilation, all of that stuff, dust and all of that. So it's cleansing. We've got the cleansing properties of the lung flush in here. So it's going to enhance blood flow, that the horse is going to be coughing potentially because of the expectorant properties. What I do like about this product is it contains stinging nettle. Now, stinging nettle is what I call Mother Nature's Benadryl. So, if you've ever given Benadryl or any kind of anything along those lines to a horse that's dealing with a reaction, an allergic reaction, you well know that the reactions can be quite intense. So, stinging nettle is very similar to Benadryl in that it helps to reduce symptoms associated with allergens or with an allergic reaction. So it will reduce, the coughing, sneezing, the runny nose, runny eyes, things like that. This is why stinging nettle works so well. And a lot of research supports stinging nettle. And for those of you who do a lot of hiking out in nature, if you've ever stepped on stinging nettle, regardless of where it is, it really hurts. But the stinging nettle in the formula itself will help to control these symptoms associated, especially with allergies. So stinging nettle is just one of the 15 herbs in this formula. But if you've got a horse that every spring develops allergies and or heaves again as the weather changes, and even in the winter months, we have horses that can have a hard time breathing, whether it's extreme heat or humidity, or adversely, when we're looking at extreme cold, that could also cause breathing issues with horses too. And we are in the winter months right now, and it's quite cold out there, and it can get quite cold. So respiratory can be very beneficial for horses dealing with chronic when we're dealing with chronic respiratory issues. Now, we usually recommend for more stubborn cases of allergies or heaves, again, the environment where horses are stabled more frequently. Horses on round bales, they have their nose, they're right into the bale of hay. That can be a recipe for respiratory problems. And even with wildfires, I'm going to bring that up because I think it's important. uh Wildfires, I know, for those of you in Canada, along the west coast, of course, I've been dealing with wildfires for years, and we normally recommend the lung flush and the respiratory in situations like that, because we have to let the horse breathe. The horse has to be able to breathe, and with breathing in smoke can be very detrimental. So the lung flush can help clear the toxins, and the respiratory can help the horse breathe better as well. And these are very quick acting, especially the respiratory. You will notice, and again, I should mention that if you're used to giving medications, our products will not work as quickly as medications do. They need time to build up in the system, and some horses may need to be given more than others. So with respiratory, you can give up to 270 milliliters a day, or 270 cc, however you like to. They're both, volume measurements, but you can give up to 270 milliliters or cc's a day. You can divide the doses. That's normally what we recommend for dosing with any of our supplements, to divide the doses throughout the day. However, realistically, not everybody has access to their horse throughout the day, so you rely on someone else. If you rely on someone else to give supplements, then you could give it all at once, but ultimately, it's best to give supplements throughout the day in divided doses, because it provides those nutrients throughout the day, whether it's every 6 hours or whatever the case might be. Now, typically the products last in the system anywhere for 3 to 4 hours, depending on the horse's metabolism. So again, readministration would probably be necessary for respiratory distress, depending. It will depend on how severe the whether it's an allergy or whatever the case might be. And that's another way that supplements differ from medications, is that you can't just give a dose in the morning and it lasts for 12 hours. It just doesn't work that way with supplements, unlike medications, where they can work for longer periods of time. So this is where we talk about the strategies for giving supplements. And I find that with horse owners, especially if you're new to giving supplements, there's a hesitancy to give more than one supplement at once, and I completely understand that. I always usually suggest starting with a supplement and see if that supplement works. And, for example, the lung flush. I normally recommend giving lung flush. It can be given any time of year, but we find we sell a lot of lung flush heading into allergy season. And I highly recommend using these respiratory support formulas if you can use them preventatively, especially if you have a horse with allergies. I normally suggest giving the equine lung flush 30 days prior to when you normally start to see allergies, symptoms associated with allergies. Because normally, if you have a horse with allergies, every year that's going to potentially happen every year, a horse with heaves as the weather changes. So once the lungs have been compromised, and I don't mean that in a bad way, I mean that once the lungs, if you have a horse with allergies or heaves or anything like that, if the lungs have been weakened in any way, we like to support them and provide as much support to lung tissue as we possibly can. So that's why prevention is so important with regards to respiratory issues, especially with allergies and heaves, because it's a certain time of year and the timing is crucial. Now, if you wait until the horse is starting to display symptoms, that's not a problem. You can give the products in acute situations. You can give them also for longer term. I find many people are a little bit hesitant about giving products longer term, and I just wanted to put your minds at ease that these products can be given long term if needed. I do find most people will just use them on an as needed basis. That's how supplements are meant to be used. But sometimes when we have horses that are dealing with these chronic breathing issues, then it's not harmful to give any of these products longer term. So the equine lung flush, I normally recommend 30 days prior to allergy season, or it can be given any time of year. But as the seasons change, we all know how that goes, and how when it starts to get warmer out, and then we look at the heave situation. So the equine lung flush can be given by itself, or it can be given with airwaves, Erbicoff, or respiratory. So don't ever hesitate to combine lung flush with any of these formulas, because it just adds that toxin clearing part. And again, you're not getting it to the level, you're not getting the cleansing to the level in airwaves, Erbicoff, or respiratory as you would in the lung flush. But a lot of horse owners don't think that they can give the lung flush with these other formulas, but you definitely can. It's definitely safe. And the worst case scenario, watch for things like increased coughing. If that happens, you can always reduce the dose of any of the formulas. If you give too much of any of these formulas, again, there could be the increased coughing, or you might notice that the manure is a little bit looser, and that is another indication that you're giving too much. But again, no fatalities in all the years that these products have been on the market, so you don't have to worry about that. Airwaves or respiratory can safely be used daily for more chronic respiratory conditions such as allergies and heaves. So, mild situations, we look at airwaves. More chronic or stubborn cases of allergies or heaves, respiratory. Usually that's where I when because there is some confusion, and I understand where the confusion lies with these respiratory formulas, because there's some overlap with some of them. And so I can see how it could cause some confusion with many horse owners. But think of airwaves for milder cases and respiratory for more chronic, stubborn cases. And I always suggest that the products can be given preventatively. I do find that the majority of horse owners do give these products or call us when there's already a problem, and that's fine, because we're here to support regardless of the situation, short-term or long-term situations. I know some people who give their horse 60 cc of respiratory every day of the year, and that's absolutely safe to do. Now, when we look at respiratory and the huge, when we look at you can give anywhere from, not up to 30 to 90 mils up to 3 times a day or more. It's hard to know where to start. You start at the lower end or at the higher end. And I know for any horse owners that are fearful, I always suggest starting with a lower dose and working your way up. And we've had people calling us and saying things like, I've heard that respiratory is quite good, and I've given it to my horse, but I'm really not noticing huge changes there as I kind of thought I would. So the first question I ask is, how much are you giving? Because sometimes it's all about the dose. How much are you giving? Some people just don't give enough to notice a response by the horse, and depends on how degenerative or how chronic the respiratory issue is. If the horse is suffers with chronic heaves, then you're going to need to give more. So you might need to start with 270 mil a day, but you're not going to be giving that every day for months at a time. It's not going to break the bank, so to speak, because our products are cost effective, but we want to make sure that the horse is getting the most from the supplement in question. And that's why I really like to talk about targeted supplementation and in what situations the products work best and in what, we recommend lung flush for this particular situation and so forth. Now, always, if you can, if your horse doesn't mind a syringe, I know some people who say, oh, my horse loves the taste of your products and can't wait to get a dose of Respirafree or Airwaves or whatever the product is. And then we have other horses that do not like the syringe at all, and that's okay because you can always mix that in with the feed. That's not a problem. So there's different ways of going about doing that. Now, I failed to put this point here, and my bad. I want to talk about this. It's not on the slide, but there's different ways if your horse doesn't like the taste of the products and you want to, you quite often will suggest mixing them with applesauce, whether it's a powder or a liquid. It just so happens that all the products are liquids tonight. But whether it's the Biotic 8 Plus or whatever it is, you can mix these products in for a finicky horse. You can mix the products in with applesauce. Some people will mix it in with fruits or vegetables. We have to be careful with molasses and anything that has a higher carbohydrate content, especially if you're dealing with a horse with metabolic issues. But, people will mix it in with the grain, will mix it in with their feed, again, fruits, vegetables, applesauce. Some people will do that. It all depends on the horse, but these are just some options there available to you. But you will always see quicker results when you give a horse a supplement using a syringe. Um, if you are giving your horse a medication currently, whether it's an antibiotic or if you're giving clenbuterol or whatever medication it is, it doesn't matter. We normally suggest giving our supplements at least 2 to 3 hours away from medications just to be on the safe side, because even though these products are natural, they could affect how the medications are working. And we don't want to be the cause of a medication not working as effectively. So just to be on the safe side, I would suggest you still can give them, just not at the same time. Just the general window of 2 to 3 hours is what we normally suggest. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this evening's presentation. Does anybody have any questions or does anybody want to share anything? I know some of you have used a number of these products before, but and if not, that's fine too. If you can't think of anything now, that's okay. I'm always here and you will have I have spoken with many of you before already through email. You can call, you'll have my email address. If you don't already have it, you'll have it tomorrow when I send you off a link to the recording and a copy of the presentation. But regardless, you can call me anytime or email me anytime. We can talk about the products. If you ever have anything come up throughout the year, please reach out to me. We have a toll-free number on all of our bottles. When you call the toll-free number, you will definitely end up speaking with me anyway. So that toll-free number is there to help you. And I'm here to help you with regards to any of the products and how you can use them for optimal results, I should say, for your horse, because everything in life is a strategy. Supplements are no different. And please don't be a stranger. And I do hope you come back next month in February when we start with another topic, and I hope you'll join me at that time. So I'd like to thank you. A happy new year to everybody. Hopefully everyone had a lovely holiday, and I look forward to many more presentations for you and with you, and look forward to speaking with you again next month. So thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a wonderful night. Thank you. And thank you, Tracy. I'm glad. I know you've spoken highly of the products before. Yes, the respiratory support formulas very much we can control what we give here, which is nice, in a world where the environment is so polluted nowadays. And depending on where you board your horse, some environments are more polluted than others. It's definitely nice to know that these supplements can be part of a program for you. And thank you for those comments. They're very much appreciated. So enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. Take care, and I'll talk to you next month. Bye.